So welcome to the Writers Happy Hour. And here we have Rick Gualtieri, the author of so many freaking things. Like you've got your Hybrid of High Moon series, you've got the Tome of Bill series and the Crypto Hunter series. What is that like, even like having so many different genres under your belt?
Well, mostly confusing. Sometimes a little frustrating, but it keeps me from getting bored. So there is that.
Do you kind of cycle through and like write one at a time, or do you have several different books going at any given time?
Usually I try to have maybe two books going at the same time. So it's like, okay, so if I'm writing, I'll usually have two going at the same time. So I work on one in the morning, one in the afternoon. If I'm editing, usually I can really focus on like one book.
Yeah. Do you find that it splits your fan base, or does it kind of, do they feed into each other?
No, it definitely splits it. In fact, probably the worst reviews that Bigfoot Hunters has are people who came over from my Bill series and are like, why isn't this funny?
Oh.
Like, it's supposed to be funny. And I was like, it's not supposed to be funny. Nothing in the description says it's funny.
Because they're expecting the same kind of thing from you as you delivered in your other series. What are some of the pros and cons that come with writing in so many different genres? Because you have what, 4 different series, right?
I have more than that, I think. I mean, those are the series where I have multiple books in, but I have a bunch of other series starters going on. And then there's the Shingles books with Authors to Dragons. But I mean, the downside is exactly what I just said, is like reviews. If somebody's expecting one thing and they pick up another, and they can just be inexplicably angry about that. And I guess it's also kind of you can wind up splitting your fan base. Like a lot of people who like my Bill series don't want to pick up my other series, and vice versa. And
so then you have to spend twice as much time marketing, trying to find your fan base in every single genre that you're in. So how many genres do you write in, actually? Because I was thinking it was just like the dark comedy kind of stuff, plus the horror, plus the romance kind of thing, and then obviously Shingles and your authors.
I'm not sure I would ever say I write romance, but
okay, touche. You're right. They are not.
So yeah, there's urban fantasy, horror comedy, horror. I guess pure fantasy, because Midnight's Daughter is pretty much isn't really urban fantasy. And yeah, I mean, I have a couple books out that are more risque.
So with the Tome of Bill series, it's 8 books long. Did you go that long just because it was so successful, or do you just really love that series so much?
No, I mean, I'm not a big fan of, I guess, ongoing like infinite series, because I mean, you have some books out there that are like on book 20, 30, 40, 50 or so, and I'm of the mindset that at least for my mind, a series eventually jumps the shark. Mm-hmm. And once it does that, I'm checking out, and I'm usually not checking back in. On the flip side, I remember like reading, well, before it was kind of outed whether that she was not a wonderful person, but I remember reading Harry Potter, and like it was 7 books long, and thinking to myself, this is a pretty good length for a series. So that from in my mind, 7 to 10 books is kind of like, I won't say it's my absolute maximum, but that's kind of like my sweet spot, where I'm like, okay, if I can hit 7 to 10 books, I think you can tell a really good story in that time without people going like, okay, man, you're obviously bored with this.
You're just like reaching and making up stuff that doesn't even go with the series anymore at that point.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh man.
Oh, that's awful.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking manga sake.
My husband made me lavender lemon drops, and they are so sugary, and they sneak up on you. So I got to be careful.
This is actually not very good, but I do a lot of cooking with it, so it's actually a pretty good cooking sake.
Nice.
It's all I had in the house.
Oh no.
It was either that or 2 shots of 80 proof tequila.
It's just like cooking sherry. You're just like drinking vanilla extract, trying to get drunk over here. We're in high school again. There was some speculation about your books crossing over. do any of your series ever cross over, or
Okay.
was that just kind of a plan that that never really came?
Oh no,
Right?
it's a plan that I'm working towards. So okay, so in my Toma Bill universe, uh, in fact, Rachel Carr, who's my co-author in one of those series, False Icons, we actually are just finishing up a crossover between Bill of the Dead and False Icons called Sins of the Past, and that should be coming out, I'll say tentatively within the month. Um, then I've kind of made no real secret that that my Crypto Hunters series takes place in the same universe as my Hybrid of High Moon series. In
And
fact,
then
every
they have
and it,
werewolves in that one, and they don't in Bill, so we know that they're not going to cross.
well, I'm gonna assume you haven't read the latest Bill of the Dead.
I haven't. I haven't.
Well, maybe hold that thought on werewolves, but yeah, the Get Bent series, Hybrid of High Moon, and Crypto Hunters, they take place in the same universe. And I've had like little things going on where one of the characters from one showed up in the other. In the second book of Hybrid of High Moon, she rescues a group of people from her college that are the Junior Crypto Hunters Society. So I kind of give nods there. And the reality is I actually do want to work up to a crossover once the Hybrid of High Moon series is finished. The
That's
Crypto Hunters is done, but I got at least 2 more books to do in a Hybrid.
nice. Yeah, I know a lot of people were really disappointed that the crypto series ended when it did, because they were like, you're just done. And that was always the plan, though. You were always
Yeah.
only planning on doing the 3 books, but you still do like little flash fictions. I saw in your newsletter you had a, so the universe isn't totally finished. You've still got the characters hunting monsters. They're just there's probably going to be more fan fiction than stories from you in the crypto.
I would love to see some Crypto Hunter fanfic from people. But I mean, yeah, that was always the plan. It was always envisioned as a trilogy. Um, and I'll be perfectly honest, I love writing those books, but they're difficult to write because I write so much comedy that when I actually do the straight horror and I'm just flat out murdering the crap out of people, it actually is harder to write for me than, because I always want to go back and be like snarky or something. I'm like, no, you can't be that way. This is actually human suffering.
Yeah, that makes sense, because yeah, you're trying to stay true to the genre. On the other hand, like, your Bill fans would probably have loved to see a little bit of that snark and stuff.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's not going to be enough for them because there is some snark in, like, in the Crypto Hunters. I mean, all the characters have their own personality and stuff,
Yeah.
but it's not a comedy. And
And
in order to hit Bill levels, you kind of have to like cross over that line into comedy, not just like the occasional one liner here or there.
yeah, because with Bill, you get pretty ridiculous with just off the wall, very tongue in cheek, almost like high school gamer humor when it comes to Bill. And I think that Authors and Dragons kind of back and forth is one of the things that people love about the Bill series so much.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a gamer in real life. I have my own D&D group, and the way they talk in the Bill series is not entirely dissimilar to a lot of at least here on the East Coast, a lot of the gaming groups I've been a part of. It's not really that dissimilar to how they talk. They kind of just foul mouth, just kind of
they say terrible shit to each other, and it's hilarious.
Exactly. And I mean, it's all in good fun. I mean,
yeah.
I've had plenty of people who've read the Bill series and be like, oh, this person's a terrible person. And I'm like, you have to understand that the things that these characters are saying, no, they're not right, they're not correct, but they're basically just a group of friends that are mostly just that are just BSing with each other, just telling their own lies amongst each other, just calling each other out. There's no rancor involved in it. It's just like a little subslice of gamer culture.
Definitely. I definitely got that gamer vibe from it. And people were talking about how there were like quite a lot of, I was surprised to see how many harsh reviews your Bill series got.
Oh, I'm not.
Well, I guess that's to be expected. Whenever you have a lot of reviews, you're going to have a bunch of harsh ones.
Well,
But
it's also a matter of I mean, there's a lot of language in the books. The character Bill is not really, I won't say he's an anti-hero, but he's not really a hero. He's not somebody who's just trying to do the right thing. He's trying to do the right thing for him. And sometimes the right thing for him is basically, screw this. Why do I want to get involved?
right, he's a little bit self-serving, and yeah, he's like your average dude. He's not above being a little bit selfish sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
I think one of my favorite parts in the series, and a part of me thinks I should have followed up with it, but there's a section in it where Bill's friends are captured by the bad guy, and the bad guy, he thinks the bad guy's gonna threaten him with death, and the bad guy's like, well, no, I'm just gonna pay you to shut up. And at first Bill's like, no, we won't take that. His friend's like, whoa, how much are we talking about here?
nice.
And Bill's like, oh my God, you're right. Am I an idiot? This guy wants to just pay me for a situation that I don't really care about to begin with.
That's kind of freaking awesome. Yeah, I like the way the dialogue flows back and forth with Bill, and it does kind of give you the sense of everybody's walls are down, and you're just talking with your friend who drew a dick on your face while you were drunk the other day. So
And also the thing is, Bill is a first person, is told in first person, and I'm not, when I tell a story in first person, I don't really believe in censoring or pulling punches, because you're in that character's brain. And I'm like a student of psychology, and maybe I'm also cynical, living here in New Jersey, but I'm a firm believer that inside our minds, most of us say terrible things that because nobody else is listening.
right, and having
Yeah.
that raw, like honest kind of inner
Yeah.
dialogue is part of what makes it a little bit different and what makes it stand out a little bit. Um, in the High Moon series, there were a lot of people who talked about the main character not acting like a girl, and like you not writing a girl properly, but the whole
Actually, I think that's only one or two reviews.
okay.
I think most. I mean, I and so there's an interesting 2-star that I got from that, and yeah, actually, I think most of the people who've read Hybrid of High Moon actually like.
Liked the way that
Yeah.
she stood out, and she was a strong female character.
Yeah, I had one person, and no, I'm not gonna call him a prude or so, but they basically came in and said, this girl's talking about sex and she curses and she admits to watching porn. I think this character was meant to be a guy. And I was just like, you apparently have never met any like college aged women.
Yeah, I don't remember which, maybe it was only a couple reviews. I don't know, but I saw that and I was like, this is the perfect example of how sometimes bad reviews are actually good advertisement for what you're writing, because that was what people actually ended up loving about Tamara, was just her, like her she's a little bit rough and a little bit crass, and she is exciting and fun to read.
I mean,
She bites and kicks butt and doesn't censor herself, and I think she's great.
yeah, I mean, I didn't want to write your typical urban fantasy. There's a lot of, and I guess I guess more on the urban fantasy romance side. I think your typical heroine is more like a swimsuit model who does magic.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want Tamara to be that. I wanted her to be like, she's an athlete, so there's actually a reason why she can, like, kick butt when she's fighting, but she's not really a girly person. She's like, she enjoys a lot of things. You know,
She's very flirty
yeah.
and outgoing and charismatic and everything that you typically see in like a male protagonist, but you made her a lady and it was great. How do you choreograph your fight sequences in the Hybrid of High Moon series?
I mean, I choreograph pretty much all my fight sequences the same. Is that I write them like they're meant to be kind of like viewed as an action movie. Like it doesn't really match to real life, but when I'm writing about werewolves, at that point, I'm like, if somebody's gonna be like, a bullet wouldn't ricochet like that. I'm like, yeah, but it looks cool that it does. Also, it's werewolves fighting, so
Yeah.
But what I basically do for every fight scene is I kind of essentially create a mental map in my head of the battleground, and all the characters there are kind of chess pieces. So it's really just as I'm going through a fight scene, it's okay, where is everybody on the board, updating the pieces so that nobody's doing mid-battle teleportations or anything stupid like that, because I hate that crap.
Mhm.
I've read way too many fight scenes where it's like, okay, this person was over there and now suddenly they're in your face and they didn't teleport and they don't have magic. That's just sloppy writing. So at any given time in my fight scenes, I want to know where everybody is, but I want to I want to try to make them flashy, brutal, snarky. As I said, like I grew up in the 80s watching watching like Schwarzenegger movies and stuff. So I kind of take that approach when I'm creating a fight scene, is that I want something that you can visually see the awesome explosions or the person getting their face punched off or stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally see that. Like, I honestly, sometimes when I'm doing fight scenes, I almost picture like anime because mine get a little bit too ridiculous and I have to like dial it back. But I liked the way the High Moon fight scenes worked out, especially in the second book. Do you like balance out all the action sequences with the plot development? Because you've got people that are going through, like, without giving too many spoilers, people that are going through heavy stuff that are also propelling the plot forward with all these battle sequence after battle sequence, and you keep people engaged with what's going on with your characters and also what's happening with the fight scenes.
Well, I mean, I think it's you need to also kind of track your character's health. So like with Bill heals really quickly. So I can kind of beat the crap out of him and then send him to get the crap kicked out of him relatively quickly. But I also have to keep in mind things like, okay, when's the last time he had blood? When's the last time he slept? So it's just kind of keeping a track of the character's health as they go through stuff, and really just pacing it along the lines that I want my books to be like a roller coaster. I want there to be the ups and downs and all of that stuff. Um, Again, I've read plenty of stories where in some stories almost nothing happens, and other stories it's like a constant fight scene and that doesn't give you a chance to breathe. And I want there to be excitement. I want my books to kind of almost be like an Indiana Jones movie. That's a pretty good template in that.
That is.
It starts off with an action scene, then you get the story, then you get more action, then you get another break for exposition or like character building. So it's that up and down of the characters do stuff, they get into a scrape, but then there's a bit of a rest, for them to heal, for them to talk, for them to maybe run away,
Process
until they
their
wind up the
emotional
next
trauma that they just went through.
Exactly. And also give the reader a break, give them that whole, okay, I can calm down now. The characters are just sitting down eating waffles, talking. Nothing's going to happen here. Maybe.
Yeah, you never know. What is it like doing your Authors and Dragons thing? Like you keep that going all the time. You guys have maintained and just consistently been putting out great content with Authors and Dragons for, I mean, I've really only been watching for the last couple of years, but you guys have been around for a while, and you're so diligent in putting out your content, and the stories that you guys come through with the Chronicles of Calamity and everything are really great. How has that been, balancing that with your own books?
There's really not much of a balance. We put a lot of work into Authors and Dragons, but it doesn't feel like work. And I think part of that is because it's a really great bunch of guys. Drew's awesome, Steve, Bob, John, Joe, they're all great guys. And so on a weekend when we tend to record almost like once a week and then usually once on the weekends. And
is it like group therapy a little bit?
It's not even that. It's just fun. Like when I hear, hey guys, we're gonna record Saturday at like 2 or 3. It doesn't feel like a chore. Like, oh well, I guess I'm gonna give up my Saturday or so. It's more like, okay, now I'm looking forward to this because we're probably gonna do something and make each other laugh, and it's gonna just be a good time. So there's a lot of work behind it, but it's one of those things that even after 6 years, it doesn't feel like work.
That's awesome. It's been 6 or 7 years you've been doing A&D, and you guys are
Something like
going
that.
back to Authors and Dragons Con. It's going to be in Tennessee this year, right? Like, or
Yes.
yeah, Nashville. Are you
Yes.
excited about that, or is it going to be like scary to be in a
Well,
room full
okay.
of people after being isolated so long?
So we're moving ahead tentatively with the assumption that the vaccine is going to be available for everybody who wants it. So if you look at the like government schedule, by August, everybody who wants it should be able to get it. So as long as that's the case, and like then I think we'll be fine. If something gets screwed up with that and there's a delay for whatever reason, then we'll take that into account and figure it out. We're not going to shame anybody if people like. We're going to follow whatever the mask regulations are. If there are no mask regulations, we're obviously not going to shame anybody who wants to wear a mask. We're just going to like play it safe. So it's.
Oh yeah, I was more thinking just along the lines of like social anxiety, like being around people. But you're kind of like, you're not socially anxious at all. You're like a
Oh,
butterfly. You
I
love
100% am socially anxious. So the first Author and Dragons con we did in Vegas, and it was the most wonderful weekend, but it was the most freaking stressful weekend. It was like being wired for like 3 full days, because you show up there and you're like I've done cons before, but it like you go to a con Carolinas, you go to like a Dragon Con, and you're like, at best you're probably a small fish in a big pond, or at best you're a medium-sized fish in a much larger pond. But at A&D Con, people are there to see us, and that's freaking crazy.
It's cool, but also terrifying.
Horribly terrifying.
What does that like? I don't know. Does that kind of put it in perspective, like how many people's lives are affected by your work, and how many people find, inspiration in the work that you've done together? Like, it kind of makes you. Is it like humbling, or like kind of inflates your ego to see all those people?
I think it's mostly humbling. Something. It's way too easy in this business to get a swelled head. Way too easy. Because I've seen it happen more than once. There's plenty of authors out there, that have a following, and you can tell they think their shit does not stink. John Hartness had really good advice for me. I think during one of the first cons I did with him, and he was like, treat every reader as if they're your first, and you'll never go wrong with that.
That's
So
awesome.
that's what I try to do. I mean, it still blows my mind that however many people have read my books. I don't take that for granted. I don't like look and be like, I don't throw temper tantrums if a book launch doesn't go well, like along the lines of, how dare you people, you owe me. No, I'm any book I have out there where people read it and enjoy it, it's awesome.
And like when people get what you're doing, like when they really fall into your, your little crowd of super fans, we will pretty much just buy anything that you write at this point. Like, and there's got to be like a level of like job security, I guess, that you have to feel, because
no, there's absolutely no job security in the author world. Let me tell you that right now. Because first of all, the whole concept of I will buy anything you write tends to be a bit of a lie. But also, here's the thing: I don't necessarily want people to just say, "Well, I'm going to buy something like anything you write." I want people to want to buy my books. So sometimes it does suck if I say, like, if I switch over and I start doing the hybrid series, and not many Bill fans want to switch over, because I'm like, guys, I think this is good stuff. You'll enjoy it. But at the same time, I understand, because I don't want to, because I mean, I used to be a huge Stephen King fan, but I mean, there's some stuff he puts out that I'm just like, I'll pass.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. And then there's your Caravans books, who I guess you haven't really gotten a lot of love from from your Caravans books, but I honestly think that that's just because people don't know what to expect when they're opening it. They like see a sexy dude on the cover and they're like, oh, this is going to be just a sexy romance book, and it's more like a murder mystery, but she's solving her own murder kind of a thing. And all the paranormal stuff that goes in there, I really feel like that's just going to have to fall under a new genre all of its own. I don't think that it's found its readership yet, but when it explodes, it's going to be good.
Actually, I think there's a genre out there called dark romance.
Okay.
Which is just I think it's mostly just vile, horrible people, and then like sex. But and I think Necromancer's Wife falls into that. But the reality is, I don't really put a lot in behind marketing the Caravans books. The Caravans books for me are
just something fun.
they're fun. They were fun to write. They also like took me out of my comfort. They also take me out of my comfort zone for the most part. And I think that's really awesome to like grow as a writer, just challenging yourself to do something that you maybe just kind of find squicky or so.
Right.
But they are what they are. I mean, I'm proud of them, but I also don't push them, and I definitely do not put out nearly as many Caravans books to maintain like that audience.
Yeah, that's true. Like you've only got the 2 books in the series, right? I guess it's not even a series. They're 2 standalones under the same pen name.
There's 3 standalone Caravans books: Meeting Misty, Necromancer's Wife, and Master of the Dungeon, which was supposed to be a series, and I just never got around to it.
I think Master of the Dungeon is a freaking cool idea. I haven't actually read that one yet, but it does look really, really cool on the blurb and everything. It seems like something that would be up my alley. What is your advice to writers who aspire to be authors? Do you feel like you need to spend time paying your dues and writing for an audience, or do you feel like you should just write what you love and then hope that your audience finds you?
Yeah, I think you should just write what you love, but at the same time, and this is a lesson that took me a ways to learn. So I try never to give new authors too much crap. Somebody who has 5 books out and they're still making the same mistakes, that's a whole different story. But I think when you're writing professionally with the intent to sell, you have to have that respect of putting out a quality product. Now, what is a quality product? I mean, that's
subjective.
That's entirely subjective. But I think in terms of making sure your book is edited, making sure you have a good cover, things like that. Those are the things you want to put into it. As far as like story quality goes, I think you just have to be realistic. I said when I put out Bill, my original plan was put it out there, people will hate it, and then I can get back to my life.
You didn't think people were going to like it?
Not even remotely.
What? Man.
It was a bucket list item, nothing more.
Oh my gosh. That's got to be a trip. 8 books later, and you're looking back like, wow.
Yeah. But I also went in there with like that realistic thing of, okay, if people do hate it, I'm not going to look and be like, what's wrong with you? I'm going to be like, okay, I guess I'm just not good enough and just move on. And I do think that can be a problem. The author community is pretty close knit and supportive, but sometimes I think they're a little too supportive. Like somebody will be like, "Oh, I got nothing but bad star reviews on my book." Well, those people are just mean, and I'm like, it's possible they're mean, but it's also possible the book isn't that good. So I think you have to have that realism in that case.
Yeah.
I've put out books that do have like lower star ratings than others, and some of them I look and I'm like, there's probably a reason for that.
But even your lower star books, like I know you say that people aren't really reading them, but it's still, you're still doing pretty decent, like I think. But that's my very limited knowledge of anything at all. But even your failures are more success than a lot of people get with their main thing. So you're doing actually really good, I think.
I appreciate that. I mean, I try. I always strive to put out the best book I can. Is it the book somebody else is going to think is the best book ever? Not necessarily, but when I put a book out, I'm trying to make that the best story I can tell at that moment.
And there's like a lack of pretentiousness. Like I'm not a huge fan of the shingles books. Like I have tried to, and I want to like them mainly because I love all the authors who put, who put work into the Shingles books. But, not everybody likes them, but you guys keep doing it. And there is a huge, following for Shingles. And no, there isn't. Okay.
Yeah, something. I'll just say that nobody's getting rich off of Shingles, but the reality is they're fun. I haven't put out one in a while. Like I got to get back on that horse. But the thing is, they're fun to write. They're fun to write. They're kind of our version of kind of our version of dirty old man speculative fiction. We don't really put any boundaries on Shingles, so Shingles can be as nasty as they want to be, but they kind of give us an outlet of, okay, I have a story idea, it's not going to fit into anything else I do, let me crank this out in a couple days, because they're relatively short. They're usually about 100 pages long, and they're fun.
Yeah, and that, like, you can tell that you guys have fun writing them, and it's just like when you guys are doing your A&D podcast and you guys are all playing D&D and your walls are down and you're just, saying everything off the top of your head, and there's a purity to that and there's an honesty in that. And I love that about you guys. Your whole crew is pretty awesome with that.
Yeah, I gotta say that is one thing. We're not scripted in any way. Occasionally we will say something and we'll be like, okay, Steve, edit that out. but for the most part, yeah, it's really just coming up with off the cuff stuff. When we're doing our side quests, you're just hearing us as people. You're not hearing us like playing characters or anything.
Like, I love Silas Kane, but man, I love listening to side quests. Side quests is when you're talking about movies that are coming out or movies that you saw that sucked. You even have some where you sit and you watch the movie and just like you're all commentating on the movie as you're watching it, and those are always great too.
Well, yeah, like I said, it's a fun group, and I mean, I lucked out in that in almost any group. Eventually you're going to either get sick of each other or you're going to find that one person you're like, yeah, if that person left, this would be great. But I like everybody in the group. It is great. I mean, possibly I'm that one person who they're like, gee, if Rick left, that would be life would be so much more awesome. But
I don't think so. It wouldn't be the same without Silas Kane, for sure. 100%.
He is an utterly reprehensible character.
He's awful, and he's so polar opposite of you in real life. That is hilarious that you play the like really angry religious guy who's just always ready to flog someone.
Yeah, he is. I've had a couple of people who were like, well, why don't you give him some redeeming qualities? I'm like, no, he's not supposed to have redeeming qualities.
Actually, Klaus is pretty gross too, now that I think about it.
Yeah, these are both characters who pretty much, and any like if they wind up executed, they deserve it.
But at the same time, they're so goddamn entertaining. We're just gonna keep watching as long as you keep playing them. What are you working on right now as far as works in progress for all your different hats that you put on?
I actually have, I think, 4 works in progress right now at various stages. So Sins of the Past, that's that Bill of the Dead False Icons crossover. We just got the final edits in today. So I was going through those. Carnage à Trois, which is Bill of the Dead 3. I just sent that out for beta reading today.
I saw that in your group.
Hybrid of High Moon 4 is maybe about 10 or 12,000 words written on that, so I'm going to get back into that. And I have another Bill of the Dead Adventures called Blind Justice, which is probably about halfway done.
Wow. Do you like schedule yourself out a work week where you're like, I'm going to work on this book this day and this book this day? Or do you just kind of like wake up in the morning refreshed and decide you're going to attack one particular project, whatever you feel like?
I usually try to focus on things. I mean, I kind of have a mental schedule, I guess, but the good thing about working on multiple projects at the same time is some days I'll wake up and just be like, I don't want to work on this particular project. Let me just spend the entire day working on something else. So
you're never dreading your work day. You just wake up and you do what you love. And I guess that kind of shows with your writing though. Like if you hate what you're doing, it wouldn't come out the way it does.
Well, yeah. I mean, my editing cycle tends to be, in fact, it's a running joke with my readers that like I edit forever. And I think that's because a lot of like self-published authors, they're kind of like, they kind of bang it out. It's like, oh, I'm going to release a book once a month. And my thing is I'm not trying to hit imaginary dates in the sand. I'm My goal is to put out the best book I can, and I'm not going to release a book until I'm happy with it. So every book I have released, I can guarantee one thing: it's gone out when it's supposed to, because that's the point. I'm happy with it. Not that I said, okay, well, I have to have it. I have to have a book out by April 15th. No, that's I respect people who do that, but it's
It's not the way.
it's not how I work.
That's fucking great, man. Like, I need to take a page out of your book because, like, I ghostwrite, and so I'm used to people being like, "You have to have it done by this day, or you get your pay docked." Like, you lose money by not
Mhm.
having stuff done by a certain deadline. And sometimes the volume that they expect you to pump out, you know that you're not making a quality product, and you kind of hate yourself, but at the same time, you're like, "At least my name's not on the cover." Hmm. It's definitely not something you want to say out loud ever. But but there is something to be said for taking an extra couple weeks or couple months to make sure that the story fits and it flows, and it's, you know, everything is good, and that people are gonna close that book with a like fulfilled kind of feeling instead of like, what even was that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. My goal with every one of my books is I don't want to be middle of the road. I don't want you to like put down one of my books and be like, yeah, that was fine. I want you to either love it or I want you to hate it with the fury of a thousand suns. That's why I don't mind the 1 stars, because you know,
Honestly, I think it was like the 1-star review that that got me to read the Bill book, because I was like, this lady sounds like a douchebag. I read your book and I loved it, and that was many many years ago that I first read the first Bill book, and so that's probably, I'm a very slow reader. That's why I haven't caught up on your latest work. But yeah, if you read the bad 1-star reviews, you can pretty much get a feel for what the book is about, and if you're offending those kinds of people, then you've got to be doing something right.
I mean, I mean, the only shame I find with the 1 star review is the only low star reviews that like I look at and I'm like, and that really get me, are any ones that talk about like, oh well, there are so many typos in this book it pulled me out of. Those are the type of reviews I never
Oh,
want to get, because that's stuff that's 100% within my ability to control.
and it's not a style
Yeah.
or a choice. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
If somebody hates the characters, they hate the story, they hate the pacing, they hate the language, that's fine. That's all subjective based on personal taste. I just don't want somebody to pick it up and be like, "Oh, this book is a format. This book was formatted like a mess or so." Um, that's kind of what meant earlier about quality and stuff. Is story is always subjective, but the way you package it up and make sure that like you have that that bit of respect for your readers, that's kind of like, that's what I try to do. I'm selling a product, I want them to have the best product that I think I can put out.
Well, you definitely succeed at that, and you succeed at also just entertaining us every week on A&D. So I appreciate you for that too, because I have a
Nasty.
little bit left. I think I definitely drank way more than I should have on this interview for this happy hour, but it was 100% worth it. It was so cool getting a chance to sit down and talk with you about all this crazy work that you have done over such a long, amazing, diverse career. Because I think so many people want to write in multiple genres, but they stick to one thing because they're afraid to branch out. And sometimes you just got to do that, and you got to like roll the dice, and you're kind of setting the bar for people who want to do a lot of different things and wear a lot of different hats. And you know, maybe it's okay to split your fan base sometimes.
Well, I mean, okay, so there are plenty of authors who make a lot more like like income than I do, and
I guess
it,
it's just like your definition of success, you know?
well, yeah, but I mean, here's the thing: some of them are just churning out, like they're churning it out because they know how to work the algorithms. Amazon is one of those platforms. They reward you for quick turnouts. But I remember there was one author, and the guy was probably making like 5 or 6 times what I was making. Um, but I never know, but I whenever I would ask, because he was in the same genre as me, whenever I would ask people, "Hey, what are you reading or what are you looking forward to?" His name never came up. And I think that really came down to, okay, this person is churning out books that are in the here and now. So if I'm a Kindle Unlimited reader, I want to read something now. I don't want to wait, you know. So that's that content. But then there are authors whose names you remember, who those are the people you're looking forward to. Those are the people you drop what you're reading to pick up. And that's always been my goal. I mean, I probably should have picked a better name to go with than my own, Rick Gualtieri. But my goal has always been, I want to be that person who, okay, maybe it's been a year since the last Bill book, but when it comes out, you're like, oh great, now I got to grab this. You know, I don't want to be that nameless person who are like, oh, I read your stuff all the time, but I have no idea who you are. And if you stop publishing tomorrow, I wouldn't miss you.
Oh man. No, that actually really hits home. You're wanting to make an impact on people's actual lives, and people might stop and just take a break from their crappy day and read your book, and it makes a difference to them long term. They might laugh, an hour later, like they're laying in bed getting ready to fall asleep, and they just kind of cackle, and their spouse is like, "What's so funny?"
Well, yeah,
those kinds of little things, like, I don't know. That does seem like the kind of author that everybody aspires. Well, I guess not everybody, but that's the kind of author that makes a lasting impact on people.
Well, ultimately, I write to entertain, so that's what I'm trying to do. I want to give people a couple hours of escape from the world where they can come into one of mine, and all sorts of horrible things happen. But it's like Halloween. It's a safe scare. So yes, maybe this character got his head ripped off, but you know something, we're all good when you put it down. And maybe you're a little angry. That's okay. I can handle you being angry. It means I made my job. I did my job. And maybe you're laughing. That also means I did my job.
Well, you're doing your job, sir. And I have to say, I salute you for all the hard work that you've put in. It definitely shows. And man, you've definitely made an impact on me. And my husband reads your books too. So
Awesome.
it's really cool to actually sit down with you face to face and talk about your work and your process. So I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you inviting me on. Well, it was awesome to hear back. I know you just posted on Facebook there, and I was like, yeah, sure, And then you wrote me 5 minutes later, and I was like,
honestly, okay. I was just kind of like, I put it up there expecting to hear back from like a bunch of people who have, maybe put out one book or two, and people that I've never heard of. And I was like, Rick fucking Gualtieri just said hi on my thing, and my husband was like, I told you should just ask him. And I was like, that's crazy. It's a sign. So I was like, yes.
I will say that is actually not a bad bit of advice, is that if there is somebody out there you ever want to talk to, and I wish I'd take this advice more, because like I said, socially awkward, but what's the worst that can happen if you reach out to somebody? They say no. Yeah,
they say no, or they don't answer at all.
Yeah,
for sure.
But the people who do say yes, hey,
that's freaking cool. And today has been a really awesome day. I've been looking forward to it all week, and I will definitely, if it goes well, maybe I can hit you up another time and we can do this again, because this was a lot of fun for me.
Definitely, whenever you want.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I will go ahead and end it here and just say, Rick Gualtieri from Authors and Dragons, and also from all of his many series, including Tome of Bill, is going to be putting out a couple new releases here pretty soon. Did you want to plug your work real quick and tell them what you got going on?
Well, I would tell people to just go to rickgualtieri.com for the latest updates, but I'm not sure they can spell it. But probably the easiest way to find me is just like go onto Google and just Google something like Bill the Vampire or Tome of Bill or so, and that'll typically bring you to whatever I have going on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and man, keep doing what you're doing, because it really is making a difference for people. And so many of us are always excited when something that you write comes out, especially the Bill books, which I have not caught up on just yet. So thank you.
No worries whatsoever.
All right.